She thought she was enforcing HOA rules. But what she didn't know? That truck was a police sting, wired with cameras. And now the entire internet is watching her every move. You won't believe what happens when HOA Karen messes with the wrong vehicle. It started with a shocked voice and a shaky phone camera. A teenager named Marcus was biking home from soccer practice, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the quiet suburban streets. He had his phone mounted on the handlebars, recording a casual vlog about how he'd almost scored a goal when something caught his eye near the corner of Maple and 8th Street. There, half hidden between two parked cars, was a woman crouched low next to a black pickup truck. But not just any woman. This was Karen. Karen Witherspoon, the undisputed president of the Ridgewood Heights Homeowners Association. Known in every household within the gated community for her relentless enforcement of obscure HOA rules, Karen was both feared and ridiculed. She had ticketed children for drawing chalk on sidewalks, fined a family for planting daisies instead of approved tulips, and once filed a formal complaint about a Halloween skeleton violating aesthetic unity. And now, she was creeping around a truck like she was starring in a low-budget heist movie. Marcus hit the brakes and squinted. The truck was parked slightly off the curb, tires kissing the line between legal and ticketable. Most people wouldn't have noticed, but Karen clearly had. She was wearing her usual mission outfit, a wide-brimmed sun hat with an absurdly large bow, her signature rhinestone-studded sunglasses, and a pastel cardigan that flapped in the breeze like a cape of righteousness. She glanced around furtively, then reached into her oversized tote bag. What she pulled out made Marcus's jaw drop. Scissors, zip ties. A roll of those neon-orange violation notice stickers she slapped on garage doors like they were wanted posters. Marcus fumbled for the live stream button on TikTok. "Yo, what in the world is she doing?" he whispered, zooming in with shaky fingers. The image bobbed as he tried to steady the camera. "Guys, is she cutting wires under that truck?" He didn't know it at the time, but the truck was part of a bait operation set up by local police to catch a ring of catalytic converter thieves. The vehicle was rigged with hidden cameras, motion sensors, and a silent alarm system that alerted nearby officers the moment someone tampered with it. Karen, of course, had no idea. Thousands of viewers began pouring into the live stream within minutes, drawn in by Marcus's commentary and the absurdity of the situation. The comments section exploded. "Karen's going to jail on a Tuesday. She thinks she's Batman but for grass height violations. Not the zip ties." Oblivious to the attention she was receiving online, Karen was deep in her self-appointed mission. She had already slapped 3 stickers on the windshield, one for illegal parking, one for an expired neighborhood parking permit, which didn't exist, and one that simply read, "Unauthorized vehicle, subject to towing." She then crawled to the back of the truck, examining the undercarriage like a wannabe mechanic. "That's gotta be illegal," Marcus muttered into the mic, unable to look away. He was now half hiding behind a hedge, streaming live to nearly 40,000 viewers. "Oh my God, she's trying to cut the brake line." Karen tugged at a bundle of wires, snipped one, and paused as if expecting the truck to explode. When nothing happened, she continued, her face a portrait of smug concentration. She muttered to herself, something about setting an example and protecting the community from disorder. But just as she was about to apply a 4th sticker, this one saying "Final Warning," there was a sudden chirp. A sharp, electronic beep echoed from beneath the truck. Karen froze. She looked around wildly, clutching the zip ties like nunchucks. "Who's there?" she hissed. Sirens began wailing in the distance. Within seconds, 2 unmarked cars screeched around the corner and stopped in front of the truck. Plainclothes officers jumped out, weapons drawn. "Hands where we can see them!" Karen screamed, a high-pitched squeal that could curdle milk, and bolted for the bushes. But her sun hat betrayed her. One officer snagged the oversized bow mid-flight, and she went down in a tangle of floral fabric and indignation. Marcus's camera captured the moment perfectly. Karen, face first on the grass, zip ties spilled like confetti, her tote bag flung open, revealing not just more stickers but also a laminated HOA Code of Conduct booklet with her name embossed in gold foil. "She brought the manual," Marcus laughed on camera. "She came prepared." The live stream viewer count doubled in minutes. Back at the truck, the officers quickly pieced together the situation. Karen wasn't a criminal in the traditional sense, just a very, very enthusiastic neighborhood busybody with a god complex. But tampering with a police sting operation, that was a felony. Karen was escorted to the back of the cruiser, sputtering indignantly about bylaws and visual harmony. "You don't understand," she cried. "That truck was ruining the curb appeal. There's an ordinance." "That's not your job," one officer replied. "You're not law enforcement. You're the HOA exactly," Karen said proudly. Back home, Marcus ended the live stream, stunned by what had just unfolded. He uploaded a short version of the clip titled, "HOA Karen Busted by Police, Thought Bait Truck Was Parked Wrong." It went viral overnight, garnering millions of views. News outlets picked it up. Memes exploded across social media. One photo of Karen being led away, her sun hat slipping over one eye, was captioned, "When you enforce too hard and forget the law exists." Within 24 hours, Karen became an internet sensation. Half the country was roasting her. The other half wanted her to run for mayor. The HOA board, caught in a wave of media scrutiny, called an emergency meeting. Karen was suspended indefinitely, pending a full psychological and procedural review. Meanwhile, the truck was left untouched, still slightly off the curb, still part of the sting. But now it had a new nickname in the neighborhood, Karen Bait. As for Marcus, he gained over 600,000 new followers in a week. He was interviewed on local news, dubbed a citizen journalist of the TikTok generation. He even got a sponsorship deal with a camera mount company. But every time he rode past that corner, he slowed down, just a little, to make sure the truck was still there, and that no one was lurking nearby with a sun hat, scissors, and a dream of HOA-approved order. Now here's the thing. This wasn't an ordinary neighborhood. Ridgewood Heights was the kind of place where lawns were measured with rulers, Christmas lights came with approved color schemes, and gossip traveled faster than the Wi-Fi. It was pristine, affluent, and on the surface, picture perfect. But beneath the layers of manicured grass and white picket fences, a storm had been brewing. Over the past few months, something had gone terribly wrong. Packages began disappearing from porches, vanishing in broad daylight despite ring cameras and nosy neighbors. Car windows were smashed with brazen efficiency. One resident, Dr. Harold Finnegan, a retired dentist with a love for vintage cars, woke up to find his prized Mustang jacked up on cinder blocks, its catalytic converter gone. The residents were furious. HOA meetings turned from passive-aggressive debates about mailbox color to open shouting matches about crime. Neighborhood watch groups were formed, suspicions flew like confetti, and paranoia settled in like fog. Something had to be done. Enter the Ridgewood Heights Police Department. In coordination with the city council and a very determined councilwoman named Linda Zhao, a plan was put into motion. They would deploy a bait truck, a decoy vehicle rigged with surveillance cameras, motion sensors, GPS tracking, and an almost too tempting exhaust system. The goal, catch the thieves in the act. The truck, an aging but well-maintained black Ford F-150, was parked inconspicuously near the cul-de-sac on Heather Lane, not far from the community pool. Officers ensured it was just off enough, parked slightly crooked, windows tinted a bit too dark, a little dusty, to bait the right kind of attention. They didn't anticipate it would attract the wrong kind first. It had been parked for barely 3 hours when she showed up. Karen Witherspoon. the president of the Ridgewood Heights Homeowners Association for 7 consecutive terms, and self-declared defender of community standards. Her morning routine included inspecting sidewalks for cracks, logging trash bin violations into her iPad, and snapping photos of kids riding scooters without helmets. To her, peace wasn't just about safety, it was about order, visual harmony, rules, and this truck was chaos on 4 wheels. Karen spotted the Ford from half a block away. Her pace quickened. The truck was an eyesore. No Ridgewood Heights resident owned something like that. Too gritty, too industrial, too uncertain. She narrowed her eyes, pushing her oversized sunglasses up her nose. Suspicion turned to indignation. She marched home, muttering to herself about decline and lowering standards. 10 minutes later, she returned in full enforcement gear, sun hat, clipboard, HOA violation stickers, and her trusty tote bag filled with all the tools of her self-appointed trade. The tote bag was infamous. Residents swore she kept a label maker, ruler, and spare shrubbery codebook inside. Today, it held scissors, zip ties, a roll of caution tape, and several laminated HOA violation notices. Karen crouched beside the bait truck, unaware of the tiny blinking red light under the bumper. Her voice was low but fierce as she narrated to herself. Vehicle lacks approved community parking decal, parked more than 12 inches from curb, tinted windows exceed allowed 25% opacity, probable code, breach. She pulled out the stickers and began slapping them onto the windshield and side mirrors with the ferocity of someone solving a personal vendetta. Each sticker came with a handwritten note. Unauthorized vehicle. Final warning. Tow notice pending approval. From a second-story window across the street, 11-year-old Kylie Thompson was watching through binoculars. "Mom," she shouted, "Karen's attacking a truck again." Kylie's older brother, Marcus, the same teenager who would soon become TikTok famous, was already reaching for his phone. "Hold up," he said, grinning. "We're going live." The live stream started just as Karen pulled out the scissors. Viewers joined fast. At first, it looked like just another overzealous HOA sting, but things escalated quickly. Karen moved to the back of the truck and knelt beside the undercarriage. She squinted at the tangle of wires and tubing like she was examining alien tech. With a muttered, "Well, this just screams unregulated aftermarket installation," she snipped a dangling wire, one of the bait mechanisms. Inside the truck, a silent alarm triggered. Red lights flashed on hidden dashboards. A signal was sent directly to the local precinct, and officers nearby were immediately dispatched. They thought they'd caught a professional thief. They were only half right. Meanwhile, Karen reached into her bag for a roll of yellow caution tape and began wrapping it around the truck like a spider encasing prey. It was now, in her mind, officially quarantined. Her final act? Zip-tying a laminated HOA citation to the grill. She stood back, hands on hips, triumphant. And then, sirens. 2 black SUVs rounded the corner and came to a skidding halt. Officers leapt out, weapons ready. "Step away from the vehicle! Hands where we can see them!" Karen screamed, dropping her clipboard as if it had betrayed her. "Wait! I'm the HOA president! I have authority!" she shrieked. "Ma'am, you're tampering with an active police investigation. This is a law enforcement vehicle." Karen blinked, stunned. "That's not possible. There were no permits, no notices filed with the HOA board. This vehicle does not meet Ridgewood Heights visual standards." Marcus's live stream caught every second. Karen being handcuffed while yelling about decorum. Officers discovering her tote bag and pulling out the rule book like it was evidence in a court case. One officer even chuckled, flipping through the laminated pages. "We've got a real vigilante here," he muttered. Within the hour, the live stream hit 500,000 views. She zip-tied a police truck. Karen said ACAB unless it's the aesthetic committee. Plot twist, the real thief was HOA tyranny all along. Karen was brought in for questioning, but eventually released. much to the dismay of online viewers who had hoped for a mugshot. The police didn't press charges. Technically, she hadn't stolen anything, but they did issue a strong warning and banned her from touching city property ever again. The HOA board was humiliated. Councilwoman Zhao called an emergency meeting to reevaluate the boundaries between civic duty and civilian overreach. Karen's title as HOA president was suspended pending a vote, but her notoriety only grew. Within days, national news picked up the story. Karen was featured in a viral YouTube compilation titled Top 10 Times HOAs Went Too Far. T-shirts with her face and the phrase, "Suspicious vehicle? Not on my watch," sold out in hours. And that truck? It stayed parked right where it was, but now it was known by a different name around the neighborhood, the Karen Trap. As Karen continued her self-appointed sidewalk sting operation, the atmosphere in Ridgewood Heights shifted from quiet suburban calm to something closer to a live reality show. One by one, neighbors began to gather, some peeking through their blinds, others cautiously stepping out onto porches, phones in hand, recording from a safe distance. It wasn't every day that Karen Witherspoon, the infamous HOA president, got into a standoff with a truck. She circled the vehicle like a hawk inspecting prey, her eyes scanning for every minor infraction. With a permanent scowl etched into her face and a tote bag swinging from her arm like a badge of righteousness, she plastered violation stickers on every visible surface. "This will teach them," she muttered, voice tight with irritation. "I don't care if it's for the police, it's an eyesore. No vehicle should be parked at that angle, not here, not in Ridgewood Heights." From behind a trimmed hedge, Mrs. Patel filmed silently, her mouth slightly open. Across the street, Mr. and Mrs. Feldman whispered to each other from behind their mailbox. "I think she's losing it," Mrs. Feldman said. "No," Mr. Feldman replied, eyes wide. "She already lost it. Now we're just watching the reruns." Suddenly, the truck emitted a soft click, followed by a flashing red light on the dashboard. Karen noticed it a second too late. Beep. A calm, robotic voice echoed from inside the truck. "You are being recorded." Step away from the vehicle. Karen froze mid-step, her arms locked in the air like someone had hit the pause button. For a moment, she looked like a decorative garden statue. Wide-brimmed hat tilted, mouth open, sticker half applied to the window. Gasps rippled through the growing crowd of onlookers. Marcus, the teen from earlier, was already live-streaming again, whispering into his mic. "Guys, it just talked. The truck talked. Karen looks like she saw a ghost." Karen's expression flickered between alarm and outrage. She stepped back slowly, squinting at the dash cam as if challenging it to blink first. Her fingers tightened around the handle of her tote. Within 2 minutes, the low whine of a siren sounded in the distance. The police cruiser rolled up at a calm but purposeful pace, pulling to a stop just behind the bait truck. The car door opened, and out stepped Officer Ramirez, a longtime local cop who had dealt with Karen more times than he cared to count, usually for things like unapproved lawn signs or noise complaints about children laughing too loudly. He took one look at the scene. Karen surrounded by a storm of neon stickers and yellow caution tape, and had to pause to suppress a laugh. His lips twitched. He cleared his throat. "Ma'am," he said, walking toward her. "Why are you tampering with this vehicle?" Karen adjusted her sun hat with the elegance of a pageant queen and replied without hesitation. "I'm with the HOA. This truck is parked illegally and it does not meet Ridgewood Heights community standards." She gestured dramatically at the vehicle like she was presenting a cursed artifact. "No resident would own something like this. There are rules, officer, and I intend to enforce them." Officer Ramirez blinked. "Ma'am, this is a police operation." Karen's nose wrinkled in distaste. "Then the police should follow HOA guidelines, too." The crowd watching from sidewalks and porches was completely silent, except for the quiet snort of someone trying not to laugh. Ramirez rubbed the back of his neck. Karen, this truck is part of a sting to catch criminals who've been targeting this neighborhood. It's got surveillance equipment, motion sensors, and remote alerts. You just triggered one. Tampering with this setup is considered interfering with police business. That's not just a warning level issue. That's a real crime. Karen placed both hands on her hips, her posture stiff and unyielding. And I triggered it because the police didn't notify the HOA of this installation. We have bylaws about vehicle aesthetics, officer. Black trucks with dark tints and no visible plates are intimidating to residents. Frankly, you've brought down the neighborhood's visual standard. I'm going to have to write a report, Ramirez sighed, pulling out a notepad. You do that, Karen snapped, indignation burning in her eyes. I'll be speaking to the city council about this. Marcus's live stream hit 75,000 viewers. Karen trying to arrest the cops is wild. Someone make a reality show already. This is suburban warfare, and I'm here for it. Ramirez looked at her again, more amused than angry. You're not under arrest yet, but you are going to have to come down to the station and explain what you were doing cutting wires under a police vehicle. I was protecting this community, Karen said, louder now so everyone could hear. If you won't stop the deterioration of our standards, someone has to. Karen, Ramirez said patiently, that's not your job. Well, it should be. A few neighbors stifled laughs. Someone clapped. Ramirez didn't even try to hide the smile this time. Still, procedure was procedure. Karen was escorted to the cruiser, not cuffed, but firmly guided. She walked with her head high as though being taken away was just another way to prove her point. As she climbed into the car, she turned to the crowd and shouted, "Don't let them destroy the beauty of Ridgewood Heights!" The door closed behind her. An hour later, the neighborhood was buzzing. Kids reenacted the scene with action figures. A drone flew overhead, capturing footage of the infamous truck now dubbed the Karen Trap. Social media was ablaze. Councilwoman Linda Zhao was flooded with emails and voicemails. The next HOA meeting was expected to have record attendance. Karen was released later that evening with a warning and a citation for interfering with a police operation. She returned home to find her lawn mysteriously covered with tiny plastic flamingos, probably from the Thompsons, and a handwritten sign staked into the grass. HOA, hilariously overreaching authority. Karen's expression never changed. She simply pulled out her phone, took a photo, and opened her HOA violation app. Because for Karen Witherspoon, the war for Ridgewood Heights had only just begun. By the next morning, Karen Witherspoon was the most talked-about person in the country, and not in the way she preferred. The video had gone viral overnight. Not just the original TikTok posted by Marcus Thompson, the teenage witness-turned-amateur journalist, but multiple other angles surfaced. Neighbors from across Ridgewood Heights had caught their own footage, some from smartphones, others from doorbell cams, and stitched it into a chaotic symphony of HOA fury. Even the police department, trying to control the narrative, released their own body cam footage of the incident. That turned out to be a mistake, at least for Karen. Within hours, social media was ablaze. On TikTok, clips of her shouting, "This will teach them," while zip-tying a government vehicle racked up millions of views. Twitter had hashtag Hokerin, hashtag BaitTruckBoss, and hashtag SunHatSaboteur trending simultaneously. Reddit threads dissected every frame of her dramatic confrontation, while Instagram meme pages plastered her signature wide-brimmed sun hat over iconic movie scenes. Karen as the Terminator, Karen at the Last Supper, Karen in The Fast and the Furious, captioned, "Too Furious for HOA." Late-night comedians picked it up. One even ran a segment titled Law and Order, HOA Unit. Even YouTubers with massive followings jumped on the train, creating reaction videos to the footage with commentary like, "Okay, she didn't just put stickers on a police truck. She zip-tied it. Who carries zip ties?" She really said, aesthetic over authority. Incredible. The HOA really just declared war on law enforcement. Karen, meanwhile, remained holed up in her house on Camellia Drive, blinds closed tight, front porch abandoned. The only signs of life were her sprinklers, still operating with military precision, and her robotic lawnmower, which quietly glided across her grass like nothing had happened. The HOA board was humiliated. Not only had Karen brought international attention to their tight-knit, rule-obsessed neighborhood, but she had also made the entire board look like an out-of-touch authoritarian circus. A special emergency meeting was called, and in a move that stunned no one, Karen was issued a formal censure by her own HOA. But the real trouble came from the city. Tampering with a government-operated surveillance vehicle, even if unintentionally, carried real consequences. Karen was officially cited for interference with a police operation, destruction of temporary police equipment, the snipped wire, and obstruction of a lawful investigation. Her lawyer, a weary man named Milton Barnes, who had previously only defended her in cases of shrub height and bird feeder disputes, managed to get the charges reduced to community service after arguing that Karen had acted in a passionate misunderstanding of civic responsibility. She was fined by the HOA for unauthorized use of caution tape and sticker damage to another person's property, a technicality they'd never had to enforce before, and the city tacked on additional fees related to misuse of city resources. The grand total, $1,900 in fines, 40 hours of community service, and mandatory attendance at a public safety meeting hosted by the local police and city council. Karen didn't say a word to the media. She didn't post any rebuttals, didn't issue a statement, but behind her tightly shut blinds, her blood boiled. She wasn't ashamed, far from it. She was indignant, righteous. To Karen, the real crime wasn't tampering with a bait truck. It was audacity. That truck had no HOA-approved parking sticker, no courtesy notice to the community. How could they expect order when even the authorities disregarded the rules? Still, she complied, begrudgingly. The public safety meeting was held the following week at the Ridgewood Heights Community Center. The irony was not lost on anyone that Karen, who had once insisted the center's exterior benches didn't meet visual consistency standards, now had to walk past them in disgrace. The auditorium was packed. Parents, teenagers, reporters, and curious residents from neighboring suburbs filled the seats. Folding chairs had to be added in the back. News cameras stood near the podium. A line of city officials sat at a long table on stage, flanked by police officers and council members. Councilwoman Linda Zhao took the microphone. Tonight we'll be discussing community police partnerships, recent incidents of neighborhood crime, and how we can all better work together to keep Ridgewood Heights safe and secure. She clicked the remote. A slideshow began. The first few slides were standard. Statistics about burglary rates, comparisons of different response times, photos of community patrol volunteers. Then, slide 4. A paused frame from the viral video, Karen in her sun hat, crouched beside the bait truck mid-sticker slap. Gasps, laughter, applause. Karen, sitting in the front row as required, froze. Her face remained stoic, but her knuckles were white around her notebook. She recognized the angle. This was from the body cam footage. Councilwoman Zhao didn't flinch. We'd now like to review a recent example of what not to do during an active law enforcement operation. The video began to play. Laughter rippled through the room again when Karen muttered, "I don't care if it's for the police. It's an eyesore." The moment when the truck's speaker declared, "You are being recorded," followed by her deer-in-headlights reaction, got a round of applause. When Officer Ramirez asked, "Ma'am, why are you tampering with this vehicle?" And Karen replied, "I'm with the HOA." The whole room erupted. Even the officers on stage were smiling. When the clip ended, Zhao took the mic again. We want to emphasize that while community involvement is valuable, interfering with public safety efforts not only puts people at risk, it undermines the very protections residents count on. She didn't need to say Karen's name. Everyone knew. Karen shifted slightly in her seat, her face unreadable. But inside, a storm was brewing. That night, local news aired a segment about the meeting, ending with a slow zoom on the audience clapping as the video played. Online, the moment became even more iconic. She got roasted at a city council meeting. The HOA Sun Hat saga continues. Imagine messing up so bad they make your mistakes into a PowerPoint. And yet, despite it all, despite the fines, the viral fame, and the humiliation, Karen didn't quit. She continued attending HOA meetings. She resumed her walks, clipboard in hand, though now under closer scrutiny. The difference? Everywhere she went, people smiled knowingly. Some waved. Teenagers followed her with phones. A few neighbors even asked for selfies. Karen didn't smile. She didn't joke, but deep down, she was planning. Because in her mind, the real battle wasn't over. It had just gone viral. Now, you'd think Karen Witherspoon would lie low after everything that happened. The viral video, the citations, the memes, the public safety meeting that turned into a roast of epic proportions. But if Ridgewood Heights had learned anything by now, it was this: Karen doesn't quit. Exactly 1 month after the bait truck debacle, a new flyer appeared in every mailbox. Bright, bold, and printed on thick cardstock, it read, Karen Witherspoon for HOA president, again, committed, consistent, controversial, but in a productive way. Most residents thought it was a joke. Surely after becoming a global punchline, she wouldn't run again. But Karen was dead serious. At the next HOA election, people showed up in record numbers, some to support her, others out of sheer morbid curiosity. And in a twist that shocked the neighborhood and, honestly, most of the internet, Karen won. She didn't just squeak by. She won by 28 votes. Why? The reasons varied. Some neighbors said, well, she may be extreme, but at least she's involved. Others joked, she's terrifying, but crime did go down after that whole truck thing. And a few just wanted the entertainment value of seeing what she'd do next. And here's the twist nobody saw coming. Karen changed. Not entirely, of course, but noticeably. In her victory speech, delivered on the steps of the Ridgewood Heights Community Center naturally, she wore her now iconic sun hat and addressed a crowd of both supporters and skeptics. I realize I may have overstepped, she said, but sometimes you have to stir the pot to stop the soup from burning. I've learned from the experience. I've listened. And going forward, I will not cut any more police wires, unless they're violating curb alignment. Just kidding. The crowd laughed, unsure if she meant it. From that day forward, Karen took her role in a new direction. To everyone's astonishment, she reached out to the Ridgewood Heights Police Department and asked if she could collaborate on future sting operations. Officer Ramirez, who had become something of a celebrity himself thanks to the viral footage, laughed at first. But then he said yes. The partnership began cautiously. Karen insisted that any decoy vehicles used in future operations be visually consistent with the neighborhood's aesthetic standards. The police, in turn, requested she keep scissors and zip ties at home. A truce was formed. Karen started organizing safety workshops. She began hosting neighborhood watch nights with themed snacks, like stop sign sugar cookies and undercover nachos. She even developed a community app called Safe Haven, where residents could report suspicious activity, request home checks during vacations, or, naturally, report minor HOA violations. If I can't beat 'em, Karen declared at one meeting, I might as well organize the calendar. To her credit, it worked. In 6 months, Ridgewood Heights saw a 30% drop in petty crime. Package thefts plummeted. The bait truck, now lovingly referred to as Karen's Cruiser, was moved strategically around the neighborhood with Karen's approval and strict visual guidelines. Meanwhile, Karen's image underwent an evolution. She was still strict, Bird baths still needed permits, and lawn gnome height was capped at 18 inches, but she was no longer feared. She was respected, sort of. The local cafe, Brew and Bloom, even leaned into her fame. In the corner near the register, behind a glass display case, sat the hat, the original oversized sun hat she wore during the infamous incident. It rested on a mannequin head next to a plaque that read, "Legendary HOA Moment, 2025, the sun hat that broke the internet." Tourists and influencers would stop in just to take pictures with it. The cafe started selling Karen Blend coffee, which promised to be strong, bold, uncompromising. But the most heartwarming part of this saga belonged to Marcus Thompson, the teenager who started it all. His video, HOA Karen Caught Tampering with Bait Truck, What Happens Next is Wild, didn't just go viral, it launched his career. With support from friends, some borrowed gear, and a surprisingly savvy sense of storytelling, Marcus started a YouTube channel called Neighborhood Chronicles. The concept was simple. He told real, absurd, and occasionally wholesome stories about suburban life. From HOA feuds to bizarre yard sales, lost pets that sparked community-wide searches, and secret old-timers poker games in backyard sheds, Marcus captured it all with humor and heart. Within a year, he had over 250,000 subscribers. He even interviewed Karen for a follow-up episode. Titled HOA Karen, Redemption or Rebranding, the video showed a softer side of Karen. She admitted her mistakes, explained her motivations, and even laughed when Marcus asked if she'd ever consider starring in a reality show. "I've already starred in one, haven't I?" she replied, smiling tightly. "I just didn't know I was being cast." Fans loved it. The comments flooded in. "Can't believe I'm saying this, but I kinda like Karen now. She's like the suburban Loki, chaotic but useful. We need her in Congress." To this day, Ridgewood Heights remains one of the most famous suburban communities in the country. The viral story is studied in college media classes, discussed in law enforcement seminars, and, believe it or not, referenced in corporate team-building workshops. The bait truck, still operational, still occasionally parked in new locations, with HOA-approved color schemes and trimmed grass underneath, of course. Karen, still wearing hats, still enforcing rules, but now she leads neighborhood patrols in a golf cart labeled Community Commander, complete with blinking lights and a personalized license plate. Sun Hat 1. And Marcus? He now hosts a monthly live stream series where viewers submit their own wild neighborhood tales. He's already developing a podcast, writing a book, and talks are underway for a documentary series. At the end of each video, he always signs off the same way. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. Got a wild neighborhood story of your own? Tell us. Maybe you'll be featured in the next episode of Neighborhood Chronicles. If you enjoyed this episode of Neighborhood Chronicles, don't forget to like this video to support the channel, subscribe so you don't miss the next wild story. Comment below with your craziest neighborhood moment. Who knows, it might be featured in a future episode. And hey, don't forget to tap that notification bell so you're the first to know when a new episode of Neighborhood Chronicles drops. We've got more unbelievable, hilarious, and sometimes downright chaotic stories coming your way. You do not want to miss them. Whether it's the mystery of the midnight lawnmower thief, the epic battle over decorative mailboxes, or the cat who secretly belonged to 3 different families, we're just getting started. Every neighborhood has its secrets. Every cul-de-sac hides a story, and every block has that one neighbor. So make sure you're locked in. Like the video if you had a laugh, subscribe if you want more, and drop a comment if something weird, wild, or wonderful has ever happened in your neighborhood. We might just feature it in the next episode. We love hearing your stories. Because the truth is, until next time, stay safe and stay curious. You never know what's happening right next door. That garden gnome? It might be wired for sound. That overly enthusiastic jogger? Former CIA? That suspicious truck? Could be police bait or a rogue HOA mission. In Neighborhood Chronicles, anything can happen. And often, it does. Thanks for watching. And remember, the suburbs aren't boring. They're just undercover.